so. You ready?
We're rolling.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Glad to see you tonight. And you know what? I feel like I need to start things off by acknowledging the fact that I'm not wearing my wedding ring.
Yeah, way to come to a marriage
talk with no wedding ring.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. Truth is, I take it off. I take it off to do my hair product.
Yeah. You might want to just not share that.
Maybe we should edit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so.
But your hair looks nice.
My
today.
hair looks good.
So,
And the beard is back. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to keep it trimmed a little bit. But take my ring off, forgot, and here I am doing a marriage talk with no ring on. So don't let that deter anything that we have to say.
Yeah.
Everything is good. Okay. All right. So anyway, tonight we're so excited that you're joining us for this session. We're talking about expectations. Okay. So this week you read about, and what you're going to be talking about in your group time is expectations and how to understand each other. So let's just talk a little bit about expectations and why they're so important, okay? Expectations are not something that you just need to get past, okay? Expectations can be a really big deal sometimes, okay? Another thing about expectations, they are beliefs about the way things will be or the belief about the way things should be, okay? What you're thinking or feeling at the time, okay? Including behaviors, roles, life, death, relationships, and so forth, whatever. Expectations include everything from how marriage was going to look as a whole to what you plan on doing tonight when group meeting gets finished, right? What I'm trying to say is it's all the big things that you think about marriage being, and it's also the little things, okay? Like I said, even what's going to happen once you're done, once y'all finish with prayer, and when you're going home. Maybe you're going to pull through Dairy Queen tonight. I don't know. Maybe that's an expectation I always have, right? But perhaps the single biggest, and the reason we talk about this is because the single biggest cause of conflicts and disappointments can be attributed to unmet expectations, okay? Some of your biggest conflicts that you've had, when you look back on those biggest fights in your marriage, they've honestly been expectations that might not have been met, right? And maybe it even started with something little, like you were going out on a date, right, together, and you started off that conversation by going, is this where we're going to eat? Like, it's not what I expected. Or maybe you did the big no-no of saying, is that what you're going to wear? Like, stay away from that one.
Yeah, avoid that one.
But, expectations cause conflicts. So
unmet expectations lead to feelings of sadness, disappointment, frustration, and anger. And that's kind of the progression that happens, the feeling of sadness, and then disappointment, and then frustration, which then leads to anger. And this might happen over years. Over time, you're just like, this is not the person that I married. About 5 years in, you may begin to realize that they may not change. Mm-hmm. And all of us have experienced disillusionment at some point in marriage. And how we handle unmet expectations is everything. In Proverbs 13:12, it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Empty and hollow is how it feels when our expectations aren't met.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about, where do our expectations come from? Okay, a lot of times, if we can chase those expectations back, we can deal with them a lot better, right? Understanding why I expect what I expect out of this relationship. So let's talk through these points. Number one is the family of origin. Okay, it's basically, what you grew up with. Gosh, that matters a lot. I remember hearing a talk on this from Re-Engage, and the lady said that when it came time after Christmas, she would just put the boxes of the Christmas decorations in the hallway. Husband didn't understand, why are they in the hallway? So he just walked. It's kind of like that. There was an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. I'm going down a rabbit trail here.
Yeah.
Where they left the suitcase out, and nobody wanted to touch it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was a funny one. Okay. So it's kind of like that. It was just in the hallway. Nobody wanted to touch it because it's not my deal. Why is it there? So it took a week or so, and then he finally asked, he's like, why is the box out there? And she was like, well, my dad always put it in the attic.
Oh, yeah.
So she was like, she had this expectation that it would just go up in the attic because that's the man's role, or that's the father's role, or the dad's role. He didn't know that. So sometimes chasing that back, understanding family of origin, a lot of those things, and how we love each other, how we raise our kids, little things and big things. Number two are friends. Okay, and that deals with past relationships maybe that you've had or you've seen them have and how they treated you, right? or the way you watch your friends vacation or do their family, like that has a lot to do with your expectations and what you want, right? And you know what? Oftentimes how they parent and how they do family are what they post on social media isn't real. Like we don't see the 400 pictures that they didn't post. Right. We see the one picture. We just got back from our trip in Utah.
Right.
I posted 8 pictures?
Right.
Yeah. Those were the 8 that I really liked.
Those were the good ones.
Yeah, you don't see the picture that we lost our phone.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, you don't see those pictures. You see the great pictures. Like Jeff, my brother-in-law Jeff, he always posts about Emmy. Emmy is a fantastic baseball player. He doesn't post the pictures of her striking out. He posts all of her home runs.
Home runs, right.
So when you look at it, it looks like all she does is hit home runs. Well, we know that's not true, but that's the expectation, right? So anyway, that kind of fuels our expectations, sometimes seeing what they're doing. Also media, movies, television, what we see all the time on the TV. Like people are saying, I just want my husband to be like Tom Cruise was with Katie Holmes, right? That's a weird, I should never use Tom Cruise as an example. But you remember when he was on Oprah jumping up and down on the sofa going, I'm so in love? Like,
oh yeah, well.
That's a little over top, but that may be people's expectations. Like, I want that, right? Or sexually speaking, right? When we see what's on media and television, that's not real.
Right.
People get unhealthy expectations those ways. And then again, just as a point number 4, just other relationships in general. Maybe it's not friends, maybe it's not anybody that you really know, but you just see other relationships out there that then you put those expectations, and grass isn't always greener on the other side. So 3 key problems when it comes to this, okay? You can be unaware of the expectations that you have for your relationship. Sometimes you got these expectations, you're not even aware that you have them, okay? You can be sad and disappointed with how things are going in your marriage, and you're not really even sure why. And that's because the expectations have never really been fleshed out. You've never really chased it back, okay? Another thing about it is that your expectations can be unreasonable, okay? Ladies, you might go into a marriage thinking we're gonna have hours and hours and hours of conversation. Now that's what you got. But that's not reality for a lot of people. A lot of guys don't like to talk as much as I do. Most guys are kind of quiet. But guys might go into a relationship thinking, I'm going to have sex every night. Unrealistic expectation, right? Okay, so listen, sometimes they're unreasonable. Nobody's perfect, and we're not always going to have the perfect example in our relationship, okay? Okay, even if it is reasonable, expectations can be unspoken sometimes. Even if we have reasonable expectations, sometimes we don't talk about it. It's amazing how often we don't talk about things, okay? Like me and already having my day planned out. Like, it was a while before you started to realize that I'm a planner. And so then about, 7 or 8 years in, you'd roll over on Saturday mornings and go, okay, so what's the plan for today?
Right. Or we're not going to have a plan today.
Yes. Or that's how you like to operate. Or, hey, let's not have a plan. And so then I'm like, okay. So then knock that off and that off and that off the list. But, sometimes we don't talk about it, and we should, okay? Even when it comes to how we're loved, sometimes we don't talk about it. We don't always know how to love our spouse or how to be loved by our spouse. And it's not that our spouse might be avoiding that way of loving us. It's just that our spouse doesn't know what we're expecting. So let's talk about a better way to manage.
There's a better way to manage our expectations. So you want to be aware of what you expect. Next time you find yourself frustrated, just ask yourself, is there an expectation that has not been met? Like, what's really going on here? And then maybe chase that back and find out where it comes from. Like, why am I expecting this? And also be reasonable in what you expect. Not only should you ask yourself if your expectation is reasonable, but also know that you may have to be flexible.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And then be clear about what you expect. Make sure they know. You want to verbally communicate your expectations to your spouse so they know what you're expecting. Like before the holidays, like how are you going to spend the holidays? Before the weekends, what's our plan on Saturday going to be?
Yeah.
Are we not going to have a plan? Maybe the summer plans or the kids coming along.
Can we leave the kids at home?
Which is usually what you're asking.
Yeah, it took us a little while to get that whole holiday thing, like explaining expectations.
Yes.
Like I feel like we kind of transitioned into that.
Family.
In-laws.
Yeah.
Like be clear about what the expectations are. Talk about them ahead of time. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So again, sometimes we will assign bad motives to our spouse simply because they cannot read our minds. So they don't know what we're expecting and we think they're doing this on purpose.
Right.
So be careful not to be demanding and learning how to speak your expectations.
Yeah, like when you're talking about it, just don't be forceful about it. Just be open and honest about it. So, and one great thing that they bring up in this chapter is that unmet expectations can also reveal idols in our life. Like, that's a good way to look at it. Like, why is this feeling that I'm having? If I'm really angry, if I'm really upset, why am I so upset about this? Like, that could be surfacing an idol in our life. Like, we're trusting too much in that expectations and not enough in God. Like, that's a problem. Like, if God is ultimate, then we should be good. Like, if God is first and foremost in our life, then no matter what's going on, like, we should have a peace that passes understanding, like Scripture says, right? So when those other things don't happen in a relationship, we don't have to be wrecked because of it, right? Sometimes when we go to bed at night and we look back on the day and it didn't go the way we wanted to, it's going to be okay because we have God, right? And ultimately, God never disappoints us. So make sure above all else, your biggest desire and your biggest hope is in God and not those unmet expectations sometimes that we put too high.
So going forward, most likely we need to recognize we are not meeting all of our expectations. You're not meeting all of my expectations. I'm not meeting all of your expectations.
We're all guilty.
So we need to talk through those expectations. Oftentimes there isn't sin involved as much as it's just a difference in our expectations. It's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just different.
Right.
Your spouse will disappoint you, but like you said, God won't.
Right.
So let's look at this verse from Psalms. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever.
Yeah, that's such a good verse. Such a good verse to end on tonight. So listen, we're going to hand it back over to your group leaders. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.